Everybody, it is the Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee meeting July 9th, 2025. It is 4:02 p.m. Please call the roll.
Chairperson Mike Seville.
Here.
Vice Chair Patty Smith.
Here.
Alderman Javier Bañuelos. Alderwoman Juani Garza.
Here.
Alderman at Large Will White.
Here.
4 present.
Okay, thank you. We have the approval of the minutes, 25-0536.
Second.
Approval of the minutes from the Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee meeting held on June 25th, 2025. It's been moved by Alderwoman Smith, second by Alderwoman Garza. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried 4-0. Any members of the public wishing to give comment?
We do not.
Okay, we'll move to the agenda part then. And let me read that. It is 25-0513, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a not-to-exceed agreement for design phase engineering and planning special services with Crawford Murphy and Tilly, Inc. in the amount of $99,900 for the replace airfield signage, wind clones, runway 15 and 27, reels, and airport rotating beacon. Construct guard lights at runway 1533, project APR or ARR 5201 at the Aurora Municipal Airports. Welcome, Steve.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Got a couple apologies. One is I'm the only item on the agenda, so I feel kind of bad for dragging you out here just for the one item.
You're the only one working.
There you go. And the other is for the typical unwieldy project or Legistar item titles. I know previous chairman sort of had to struggle through these. I just wanted to make a comment regarding that. I'm not the person making these up. These are the Illinois Division of Aeronautics, and they pretty much, those things are carried throughout the whole grant process, and so it's their wording, and so we have to be in sync with their wording throughout our approval process as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that there was a question that came up during the agenda Legistar approval process, and that had to do with the project funding and so forth. And I'm just going to read this real quickly. As with all of our block grant projects, the local match amount stated in the program letter, which is attached to your attachments in Legistar, is the maximum amount that the city of Aurora will have to pay for any and all project-related costs, including engineering and planning or planning special services. Any payments made in excess of our local match will be refunded back to the city after the project is completed. So in this case, we have a not-to-exceed agreement, I think, for $99,000. And so based on what I just read you, that's obviously over the $37,499, which is our local match. We'll get that back once the project has been completed. So with that, I don't know if you have any questions. This is, for those of you that are new, this is pretty much a standard block grant type request for approval. Most of the projects that we do have federal aid and state matching funding, and in this case our share is $37,499, which is exactly what the state is paying as well. So you may have some project or questions specific. Some of these are just some nav aid issues that have to be taken care of. That's the crux of the project, but I'm happy to try and explain some of those things if you have any questions.
Any questions of Steve?
These are mandatory items that need to be done.
They are,
Correct.
and the one in my write-up, one which was the runway guard lights, that stems from a meeting that's held every year with the feds and the state. That's more of a safety type program. It's called RSAT, Runway Safety Action Team. And one of the things that came out of that particular meeting, or which, you know, this project is related to, for these guard lights. So you've got a plane that's taxiing, it's coming up to a runway. They should know, but they don't. And they blow past, it's kind of like a stop sign. And this is an additional measure. It's blinking lights that are set in the pavement that are there to warn a pilot that there is a runway ahead. And these are installed on the taxiway. So out of this RSAT meeting, the feds were asking us to include this into one of our projects. If you saw the some of the attachments, the original program letter was for a little bit less money. That was rescinded because the feds added these runway guard lights to this project.
Okay.
But regardless, again, our local match or share is $37,499.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
When they do the last renovation, remember when they do the extension in there? So they didn't do nothing with the signs and wind cones, no?
Well, so these are specifically on a certain runway, and the wind cones are just out and about, if you will. They're not really runway specific. Those, I don't think were replaced since probably the 80s is my guess. So actually the biggest ticket item for us is the rotating beacon, which is the thing that a lot of people will see at night. They'll see the green and red or green and amber light rotating. We've had issues with that for the past 5 years. Here's an opportunity for us to get 90% federal funds to have that replaced, and it's going to be relocated as well.
Gonna be great.
So
Second.
Second, okay.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Just one, when I look at the program letter, it shows how the funding will be, I guess, reimbursed.
Yes.
On page 2. So I see that almost 400,000 is probably coming from federal.
yes, where it says state apportionment,
Yeah.
that's actually federal money.
Oh, that's federal as well.
administered. So the state,
It's like pass through.
they're the administrators for the federal funds.
Okay, so about
So-
800,000. So, given the current environment with the federal government, do you think that, one, I guess, how long would it take to have this get reimbursed? And two, do you think any of this would be rescinded?
I don't think any of it will be rescinded.
Okay.
Once that program letter is written,
Mm.
I think the only thing, if you read that attachment, I have it in front of me, but I want to hunt for it. The project isn't really good to go until those funds are released by the feds.
Okay,
So the funds are earmarked, but we don't have them yet until they release them to the state. The state's already programmed the funds that they're expecting. We're part of that
Got it.
to the tune of $470,000.
got it. Okay, so project wouldn't start until the money's actually released from the federal government.
Right, and
Okay.
so, and maybe just to elaborate, the approval process for the city, this is the first step. This is for essentially design phase engineering. We've already designed the project, and the State Division of Aeronautics has reviewed it, and they've made changes there, so they've essentially blessed it in terms of viability, and this is what they want to see, and it meets all the criteria between the state and or the FAA. So first step, now they're gonna go out to bid in November. The state will let that project. The state will write a letter to the city, me, say, hey, we've got a low bidder of X amount and this is the contractor. What is your intent? So we send a letter of intent back to the state. State then draws up a contract between the contractor and then an agency agreement between the city of Aurora and the state. And then we'll come back typically, again, rather than a design engineering contract with Crawford Murphy and Tilley, they're our aviation consultant. We'll come back to the city for approval for a construction phase engineering agreement along with the approval of an agency agreement. We don't have it in hand typically, But when that gets to us, it'll go down to our CFO for processing. That gets sent back to the state. And honestly, the state takes their sweet time. I don't know their situation specifically, but usually there's a long, long lag. Sometimes we've had to rebid because we haven't been able to execute a contract or an agency agreement with the state because the contractor and the state have not been able to get their paperwork done.
Got it. Okay.
So it's unfortunate. We actually just ran into that. We had a contractor bail on one of our projects that, you know, some of you that have been here prior to the new administration has approved it. Agency agreement was approved, but it took so long for the agreement to be, not the agreement between us and the state, but the contractor and the state. And they couldn't hold their prices, so they bailed on us. So
Wow.
now I have to rebid it, and it's gonna cost us more money.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Okay,
May I
we have a
ask-
motion on the floor.
May I ask one more question?
Yes.
Or make a statement? That process that you just shared with us is very interesting, and I think you should plan to share that at COW, because I think it really gives us a better framework of all the things that you go through to get to where you are. So, you know, sometimes it just looks like,
Yeah.
okay, you just come and ask and boom, it's done.
Right.
But it's good that we, you know, for us to know all of those different, I'm gonna call them hoops, that you have to jump through and follow, to, you know, be
I'm
very
happy
good.
to do that, whether
Yeah.
that's the best place to have that. I know some of the new aldermen plan on coming out for a tour. Maybe it would be good to go over it then as well, or maybe instead of, I don't know, whatever you prefer, but for me, obviously, I live it and breathe it, so I know what it takes. I know things that are getting done and things that aren't getting done.
Right.
But typically, to your point, you don't really see that.
Well, and also if you do it here at a meeting, whether it be a COW or council, our public can hear it as well.
True.
I think it's important for them to hear some of these things that, you know, that make it look like we're just making decisions with no background information behind it, which, you know, much of what we have in our legislature tells us a great deal, but you just added a whole lot more to it. So
Yeah.
I think it's valuable to share that.
I'm
detail with
happy,
us.
you know, whether you want me to prepare something or
We'll let the chairman.
answer some questions.
Let you decide on that.
Well, the percentage, I think, is important, too, because people want to know how we're funding this, and not everybody knows the percentages. Is the city's share of funding, is it 5%?
This is 5%.
Yeah, and then the
typically it
state is the 5%, and the rest is the federal
Correct.
government. So it's a really great deal
It's
that
a
we've been able to
fantastic
do.
deal.
In fact, if we could have more funding like that across the board, we'd be an entirely different city, so. But yeah, I think in mentioning that, and just mention, you know, this is routine, what's going on here, and the upgrades, why that they're needed and the like, and I think it's a great educational opportunity, like you, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Since we're only
it's,
one agenda, you can take as long as you want, so.
Yeah, no, I don't want to keep you. Everybody's probably, hey, we got one guy, let's get out of here. So,
Absolutely.
I have one more question. So what happens, it's always a good thing to know, if we don't do this?
if we don't do this, well, let me just back up. So with regard to your question just a moment ago, or statement, so every October, we prioritize our projects. Typically, they're airfield or airside projects. Most often, they have to do with, if it's a pavement thing, which, let's face it, runways are pavements, taxiways, ramps, area, those are all pavements. We do pavement condition assessment reports on all the different areas of the airport, not every year, but probably every 3 years. And then we use that to prioritize areas that are in the most need, if you will, for a project. Some cases, like I mentioned, our rotating beacon, we've been having problems with that. So it's every fall, we go down to Springfield, sometimes now it's virtual, but we prioritize all the projects based on the needs that we see at our airport. And then we list those out for a period of 10 years, let's say. And then as we discuss those with the state, we've got a list of maybe 18 different projects, and they're our priority, but not necessarily the state's priority, and it may have something to do with the cost of the project as well. So the state has their arms around this big pot of money from the feds, and they're trying to figure out who's gonna get what. So look at every airport in the state of Illinois and say, Aurora will do this project. It might be 4th or 5th on our priority list, but the dollar amount fits well with the overall budget for the federal money that they have to distribute. And so in this case, again, we need a rotating beacon pretty badly. That probably was 3rd on our list. However, the feds programmed that along with the reels those are runway and identifier lights. There's some other nav aids that need to be replaced as well. So they've chosen, we tried to lump a bunch of projects into one to make it a viable project in terms of the dollar cost or the size, as far as how much it costs. That gives us a better chance to get something funded. If it's a very low cost, chances are they won't do it because it's not big enough. And if it's too big, we won't get that either. So we try to include things to make it a nice size project. And I lost my train of thought here as far as where I was going with that, but point being is that there's a lot of planning that goes into our projects. Some of these things that you're seeing today, they were on our list from 6-8 years ago. And they're just now coming up to the top in terms of priority, or, it's just the fact that the state has selected one of those projects over something else. They're all off of our list, and we're sort of at their mercy. And I'll tell you this, just yesterday we received another program letter that said, hey, you know what, in 2026 you're getting nothing. So, but we also had 2 or 3 projects in the wings that you've approved that, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, contractors walked. One of them was a contractor that was being investigated for, I'm going to say bid rigging. I don't know if that's actually the case, but they were the low bidder of our project. And so we've waited for 1.5 years talking with the contractor. We worked with them before. They've been great to us and they do good work. But because they were in trouble with the state wouldn't do a contract with them. So they didn't get the bid. We had another one that took so long for the state to act that it was our vault project, generator project that may ring a bell, may not, that it came before council like a few months back. But that project is going to have to be rebid because the contractor called me and said, hey, we can't hold our prices. This has been 18 months since our bid was open and the state hasn't done anything with it. So those types of things happen. Again, so we do have 3 projects that we're waiting to see done. And they've been funded, but we can't seem to get the state off the dime in order to get those projects moving forward, so we get a contractor and an agreement with the state to go ahead and go to construction. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So there's a motion on the floor then for approval by Alderwoman Smith, second by Alderwoman Garza. Any further discussion? Anything more to add? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried 4-0.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Steve, appreciate it. Any other business to come before the BZ&E?
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Smith, second by Alderwoman Garza. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. We are adjourned 4-0 at 4:21 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.